Good Voch Rabboisai. The Nishmas Imi Murasirus was Mordechai. Rabboisai, we're holding the Peivav Amud Aleph. So just to do a little Chazarah, when is it a mitzvah to take a bird and make him a treifa? That's how we finished off yesterday's sugya. That there's a story that there was moths in Reb Chia's cotton or flax, and he was told, he went to Rebbe, and Rebbe told him, Reb Chia is the one who wrote the Brises, Rebbe wrote the Mishnah. So Rebbe tells Reb Chia, take a chicken or a bird, shecht it right over the water where all the moths are, and the moths run away from the blood. The question is, how could you do so? You have to do kisei adam. The answer is, either he told them to make it a treifa first and then do the shechita, so it's not a real shechita, or do something called an achira, like this. You shecht it, you cut it the wrong direction. You slit it. Instead of shecht it, you slit it, so you're killing it, but it's not a shechita. Those are the two answers. The Gemara says, Ulamanda Omar tzei nechar, and according to the Manda Omar that says that what he was told by Rebbe was to slice him, not to shecht him, my time loy Omar tzei treif. How come Rebbe didn't tell him, break its wing, let's say, make it a treifa, and then you can do a regular shechita? Why say that he did an achira? Because, that would be a big problem. Because if it's only a treifa, and then you go ahead and you shecht it, and even though you can't eat the meat, that was the whole machlokes between Reb Meir and Reb Shimon. If you do a shechita where you cannot eat the meat right away or ever, is it considered a shechita or not? So maybe we hold, like Reb Meir, that it's a good shechita, and therefore it would require kisei adam. We're talking about kisei adam over here. We're talking about, do you have to cover the blood or not? Even in a situation of a treif where you broke the wing, but you shechted it well, and you cannot eat the meat, it's still considered a shechita to the point where you have to cover the blood. So it wouldn't help me to break the wing, if that's what you want to tell me, but that's not the case. Because if you recall, let me show you this beautiful chart that some guy did, not our artist, Magid Shir guy. I love it. It's gewaldig. That Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon when it comes to kisei adam. The red one, the red box on the bottom, kisei adam, he holds the shechita she'eina ruya, lo yishma shechita. So you can't tell me that he holds shma shechita. Yeah, he holds shma shechita when it comes to Yosef Benoi, the bottom box. But the top box, Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon. So well, I can't say that's the problem. By the way, we have some geschmack agada today. Like, it's not like that long stretched out agada, but it's like a nice piece of good yisoidus. Ra Rebbe dvar Reb Shimon b'kisei adam u'shnoi b'lashon chachamim. Here, Rebbe liked Reb Shimon when it came to kisei adam. In other words, shechita she'eina ruya, if you cannot eat the meat, lo yishma shechita, it's not considered shechita. Anyway, says the Gemara, you know why? You're asking me, there's two reasons, two possibilities in the story. When there was moths, Rebbe didn't say just shech normally. He either said break the wing and shech, or he said shech it the wrong way. Now the Gemara is saying he didn't say one or the other, he said both of them. Even if one way is to break the wing. If you break the wing, then there's no way the shechita is going to work, because a shechita that you can't eat the meat. Why can't you eat the meat? Because the wing is broken, it's a treifa, you can't eat the meat. I would say nechar, but if I tell him to shecht it sideways, slit its throat instead of shecht the throat, I would say that, you know what? You're allowed to eat the meat. It's like a fish. A bird is like a fish. Midiraisa, you don't have to shecht the bird. Maybe, I'll say that. And to do an achira, to slice it the wrong way, it's considered a good shechita. And therefore, it would require kisei adam. No, you said in the bottom of Pehei and Beis yesterday that Rebbe says that Moshe Rabbeinu got a tzivu from the Rebbeinu Shalom to do shechita on a bird. Here comes the Agadata. Beautiful Agadata. Listen to this. Is it possible that there were moths in Reb Chia's flax? Rav Bar Abba says, "V'amri lo amar Rabbi Oven Bar Shaba misha'alu b'nei goyla hagoyla pasku hazikin." In the time of Rebbe, so the meteors, the flying stars, the hazvais, and these crazy. We just had it 2 weeks ago. How many people died in Venezuela? Where was it? Venezuela, in the earthquake.
1,700.
No. Over 3,000 for sure. They're saying tens of thousands. They only found, last time I checked, 3, 4, 5 days ago, was close to 4,000 people. Venezuela. Okay, maybe Mark, find out a number. How many died so far? Shem Yirachim. So, anyways, there was, in Tzfat, there was a lot of earthquakes. That's it. Posku Hazikin. No more of these meteorites, whatever they're called, v'hazvois and earthquakes, v'haruchos, these terrible winds, v'ro'emim, v'loi hechmitz yenam. You hear this? In the time of Rebbe, that's it. There was no, their wine didn't spoil, v'loi laka pishtanam, and their flax didn't have a problem. That's the whole story started because their flax got these moths. V'nasnu chacham meineim b'Rebbe Chia u'banav. Chachamim took a look at Reb Chia and his sons, and they decided that's the reason why, in their schos. So I want to remind the Olam one of the most fascinating stories in all of Shas, I believe. It's such a beautiful, to me, it's a beautiful Maisa about Reb Chia. What was his godless? Reb Chia wanted to reinstitute Torah in Klal Yisrael. There's a problem. People were forgetting Torah. So the Gemara says, and from every word of the story, you could learn something. We could take a lesson from the story like crazy. He went and he planted flax. When the flax grew, he made nets. And then he took the nets and he trapped deer. And then he shechted the deer and took the meat and gave the meat to Yisayman. And he took the hide and he wrote Sifrei Torah with it. Chamisha Chumshei Torah. And he took the Chamisha Chumshei Torah and he taught every kid. You take 5 kids, you teach this one Bereshis, the other one Shmois, Vayikra, Bamidbar Dvarim. And then he would walk away and he said, listen, now you teach each other. Now that you know Bereshis, teach them Bereshis. And then he went to 6 boys and he taught them Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. Each one a Seder, Baal Peh, no Sfar. And he said, now you teach each other. And like this, he went from city to city to city. The fascinating thing is that he didn't buy the parchment. He planted the seeds from the beginning. And that was the whole trick. He went, got dirty. Reb Chia, the one that wrote the Brises, got dirty with his hands, planted, did the whole thing, everything. You water it, this, harvest it, make the net, making nets. Reb Chia, an Amira, top Amira from the first ones. Anyway, crazy story. And so the Gemara says, and his schos and his son's schos, that's why wine wouldn't spoil. There's none of these. Zog the Gemara. So listen to this. So the Gemara's question is how the Reb Chia himself, doesn't it? Reb Chia comes to Bavel. There's no problem with flax. There's no problem with anything. One of the things that stopped is leilaka pishtanim. There's no problem with the flax. Says the Gemara Yisaid. We all know this Yisaid. Ein chavish mater atzmi beis hasurim. Or in other words, they say today the shoemaker doesn't have shoes. His chusim were good for the whole world. Adidulai, it doesn't work for himself. Like Rav says, the famous Chanina ben Daisa. One of the famous stories is that his daughter, she filled up the menorah with vinegar instead of oil, and she was very upset. So he said, Misha Omar, Shemen Vidloik, Yoimar, the Chaimetz Vidloik, right? Something like that. Misha Omar, Shemen Vidloik, Yoimar, the Chaimetz Vidloik. So he was Melumet ben Nisim, as the Gemara says. He always had Nisim by him. So there was a baskel that came out, Kala Oilam Kuloi, Nizon Bishvil Chanina Beni, the whole world. The Parnasa comes to this world because of Chanina, my son. The Chanina Beni, Dailoi Bekav Charuvim Erev Shabbos Le'erev Shabbos. He himself doesn't need Parnasa. He himself could sustain himself with just one piece of boxer, of, how do you say boxer in English? Carib. No, so the point of the Gemara is that a tzaddik doesn't daven on himself. He could daven on himself, but the moifas doesn't work on himself. He does moifsim for other people, not on himself. Says the Mishnah, Cheresh shoyte v'katan sheshachatu v'achirim roim moifsim. So that is all the way in the beginning of Sechta, that when you have a cheresh, shoyte v'katan, these are three that their shechita is no good, but if people stand over them and make sure that they're not doing the wrong thing, they're not doing shihiyah, chalada, drisa, all the problems in shechita, then the shechita is good. Oh, but now since we're in the parak of Kisei Adam, of covering blood, so the question is, when a cheresh shoyte v'katan, who have no mitzvahs, they're not chayiv in anything, and they do a shechita, who's responsible for covering the blood? So cheresh shoyte v'katan sheshachatu v'achirim roim moifsim chayavim l'chayav l'chasos. The person that's watching has to cover. Why? Because we're going to see later on, everybody's chayiv to cover. You hear this? This is a chiddush. If I walk by a place and I see somebody shechted a chicken, I have a chiyuv to cover the blood. Not the person shechting. The person shechting, of course. But if he walked away, then it becomes my chiyuv. I can't say, hey, I have nothing to do with it. It's a big chiddush. That's a Mishnah later. So Memela, I'm watching the cheresh shoyte v'katan, so I am chiyuv to cover the blood. Beina lebeina atzma. What if they shechted, the cheresh shoyte v'katan shechted this animal all by himself and nobody was there? Here we go. Here's the cheresh shoyte v'katan. So now the shechita is pasul. Pater melachasi. Since the shechita was pasul, then there's no obligation to cover it. The same thing we could say by the isser of shechting a mother and her son. Where the cheresh shoyte v'katan shechted. V'achirim roim moifsim. And other people were overseeing them. Asur l'shchot achareim. Since other people were supervising, so it's a regular shechita. We could consider the shechita good shechita of the mother, and now it's also to shech the son. But if the shechita is no good, why? Because they did it between themselves, nobody's watching them. Meir mater lishchot achareim. Meir is certain that it's not a good shechita, 100% not good, and therefore go ahead shech the son, because the first shechita was not a shechita. It's only also to shech the mother and then her son, if both of them are shechita. But if the first one was not a shechita, it was done with a gun, done by somebody that's possible to shech, like a cheresh shoyte v'katan by themselves, then it's okay to shech the son that same day. But Chacham say no, we have to be concerned that perhaps the shechita of the cheresh shoyte v'katan, you're right, nobody was supervising them. But what if they did a good job? What if it's a good shechita? So now you shouldn't be able to shech the son. But everybody agrees, Chacham agrees, you don't get malchus, because what if the shechita is no good? So the cheresh shoyte v'katan, the shoyte guy, he goes ahead and shechs the mother. You're not allowed to shech the son in the same day, but the shechita might not be good. And if you shech the son, I can't give you malchus, because what if the shechita of the shoyte wasn't good? Says Gemara B'Rabbana Maishna Reisha Deloy Pligi. If you notice in this Mishnah, when it comes to Kisei Adam, Chachamim don't argue with Rameir at all, and they say, it seems like they agree. The Gemara afterwards is going to say they don't agree. That what? That if a cheresh shoyte v'katan do a shechita and somebody watches, you have to do kisui. But this is the point where they don't argue. If they do it by themselves, you don't have to do kisui adam. Wait a minute. When it comes to Oisef, what does it mean? You're part to do kisui adam because it's not a good shechita. So how come by Oisef is benoi they say maybe it is a good shechita and you got to be careful. I can't give you malchus, but you can't do it. Why? So Reisha Umayshna v'Seifa the pligi. How come when it comes to Oisef benoi they're mechulik? Says the Gemara. Reisha Yamrin Chayom L'Chasois. I'll tell you why. Because if by Kisui Adam I tell you that when a cheresh shoyte v'katan they shecht, you have to do Kisui Adam. Amri Shchitim Al Yisehi. People are going to say, oh, it's a good shechita. That's why you had to do Kisui Adam. They're not going to say it's a chumrah. They're going to say, oh, it's a perfect shechita. And if it's a perfect shechita of us in the meichel mishchitazim, people are going to eat it. We don't want people to eat from that hechsher. Seifa Nami asked the Gemara. Okay, so say the same exact thing in the Seifa. you're not allowed to do oisiv is benois. If you shech the mother, you're not allowed to shech the son. I'm makbid not to shech the son. So Amri shchitim alisi. They'll say that the first one, the mother, was a good shchita, and vasi lamechel b'shchita, and the same exact thing. Says Gemara, Seifa Amri Bisra looking at Baile. By oisiv is benois, they'll say, you know why he didn't shech the son? He doesn't need that much meat. They're not going to say that the shchita is good of the mother. They're going to say it doesn't need meat. Right? Maybe the reason he did Kisei Adam is because he wanted to clean his backyard, not because he has to do the mitzvah of Kisei Adam. So the Gemara says, what if he shechs in a disgusting place and he covered the blood? Why would he cover blood in a garbage dump? If a guy comes and asks a Rav, could you do I have to do Kisei Adam when a Cher Shayda Bekatan shechted? And he says, yes, you have to do Kisei Adam. So then people are going to think that the shechita is a good shechita. So how could you go to Rav and ask him the question? So Gemara says, by in the Seifa of Oisves ben Oy, you come to ask the Rav, and if the Rav says that you're not allowed to shech the son, so you can say, oh, the mother is good. The final the Gemara says, okay, from here's proof the Rabbanan argue on the entire Mishnah. Just they only argued in one place, all the way at the end. They were very polite. They waited until Rameir finished everything he had to say. And then they argue on both cases, the same argument. That what you have to be concerned, perhaps it is a good shechita, and that's why I'm going to be machmer in Kisei Adam to cover it, and I'm also going to be machmer in Oisiv Benoy not to shech the son. As Gemara Bishlam Rabbanon L'Chumra, it makes a lot of sense. Rabbanon machmer, listen, I don't know exactly what the Cher Shayda V'Katan did. Let's pretend that it's a good shechita. So you have to do Kisei Adam, you can't shech the son. El Remeir, my time. Hagar Remeir says you potter to do Kisei Adam. There's no Oisiv Benoy. You hear this? Rabbi Yochanan says that Remeir was so certain that the shechita of a Cher Shayda V'Katan is nothing, that if you eat it, you're over on Avela. Not maybe. You're over on Avela. That's how certain Remeir was. And Memela, if it's an Avela, there's no Kisei Adam, and there's no Oisiv Benoy. My time, Omer Rabami, Hoyel V'Roi Masei Mikol Kolam. Oh, here, the Gemara explains. You're right, Dr. Dauber. Roiv Masei Mikol Kolam. It's not a good shechita. If it's not a good shechita, it's a shechita. We don't allow it, because then if it's a shechita we don't allow, let's say it's a treifa, and you did a good shechita, then it does remove the tumah. Over here, the point is, they don't know what they're doing. They might have messed up the whole shechita. They pushed instead of cut straight. Pushing down is a drisa. It's a apostle. Maybe they paused the middle. We don't know. They're meshugayim. They don't know shech. Only the chaser das, I should say. A cotton is a chaser das. A cheresh, time of the Gemara, a deaf mute also has no das. Only Rav Huna b'Reder Yeshua. So what's the lashon here? Because there's a roiv. Most of their shchitas are no good. Only Rav Huna b'Reder Yeshua. Rav Huna b'Reder Yeshua. Rav Papa. My ear yeroiv. Why are you going into that? Is a majority. Afilu miut nami. Even if there's a small percentage of shaitim, of chershim shaitim, that don't perform a good shchita, that would be enough. Why? We know in all of Shas, the Ha Rabbi Meir Chayish Miyuta. If you do that for Yomi, this is a no-brainer. I could ask anybody in the shir that's been doing it for a few months, who's the man, the Omer, that says you always have to be concerned about a minority? Everybody knows it's Rabbi Meir. In all of Shas. Do you remember the main case that he talks about is by Yibum. That he's concerned that the Yavam, who's a Katan, might grow up to be a Saris. So therefore he shouldn't get married now. But the amount of kids that Lo Yaleinu grow up to be Saris, very small amount. Yet he's concerned. So you see that Rebbe is concerned about the minority. So over here also, maybe, why does he say most Chershim don't know how to shecht, Chershet v'Katan? You should say even the miut. So now, listen to this. Smoich miuta lechazaka, vitra le ruba. I was on my own today, so I had to do this myself. I like the way it came out. On the left side, you have most of the shchitas of the cheresh of the cotton are kosher. So I put it in green. Green is good. The majority, you have a larger box of green. A small amount of the chershim, of the shaitim, no good. But then on the other side, all the way to the right, you have a chazaka. Most animals right now, before you do shchita, are in a chazaka that they're awesome. You're not allowed to eat a live animal. So what took it out of its isser? The shchita. But there's a miyot here. Take a look what I did here. Mamish nespal for myself. Oh, that little box moves that way. So now you have a chazaka that an animal is no good because there's no shchita yet, plus the little amount, the tiny amount of cheresh v'katans that don't know what they're doing. Together, it overcomes the green box. So Gemara says, why do you have to say that most aren't good, even if you say most are good? And we'll make it a big giant green box. Still, the red box is larger than the green box. You have a chazaka plus a miyut, and that adds up to more red than green. More no than yes. The snan, this roiv, this green box that has a roiv is no good anymore. And how do I know that this is okay to do? The snan, you find a child next to a pile of dough. Next to and he has dough in his hand. Doesn't that mean he touched the dough? Yes. Chacham are the ones that say that most kids, we'll see in a second, they touch garbage and they're going to touch the sherets in the garbage. So why does he say that it's okay? Because so let's do this. So on the one hand, we have the same thing. We have a chazaka, just like we had in the other chart, but a different chazaka. Over here, we have chazaka. Most doughs are tar. Why not? Now on the left side, we have most children, they play around in the garbage. There's a small amount that not. So now if you take the little small green box and you add it to the big green box, see, it didn't move nicely. So now this roiv that the tinoika is amitapach is itra chazaka. That's no good. So daf pei vavon base smoich mi udala chazaka vitra le ruba. Okay, beautiful. So take time out, Mark. Take the small amount of kids that don't play around in the garbage, plus the fact that dough inherently is tahar. There's no reason to have a chazaka. It's a chazaka that's tahar. So now it ruins, those two things ruin the red box of the roiv that most kids touch tumah. And if you find a kid with dough in his hand, you want to tell me that roiv is tumah? No, it ruins the roiv. Says the Gemara, no. I can't prove from there. Why? Imaru safek tumah l'tahir. So Rashi explains that when it comes to tumah, we know tumah is safek tumah b'shus hayachid is what? Asr. But if you cannot ask the person, like in our case, there's a baby, you can't ask him, you can't answer, so then it's tahar. So Mela, we learn from a saita, that whole idea of tumah b'shus hayachid, because a saita, when her husband warns her not to have yichud with another man, that yichud occurs in a private domain, it occurs in a room, in a private place. So we know that, and just like a saita could answer, if you ask her, she could answer, so too in other cases, they have to be able to answer. If they can't answer, then it's tahar, not tameh. That's okay when you're talking about this case right over here. It's true that Rameir said that when you have babies involved, that we're going to go and use the miyot together with the chazaka to make it tahar, because when it comes to tumah, I'm going to be matar and shus hayachid because I can't ask the baby. But yomer savik isur lahater, does that mean that I'm going to do this? Take a miyut of psul, of the cheresh v'katans that are the small amount of them mess up, and make it asur together with the chazaka? That I won't do. Mechates, I could compare two cases, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara a story, not a story. Hayr Rebbe, Rebbe Meir. Rabbeinu HaKadosh said that the law is like Rebbe Meir. That what? That a cheresh v'kadosh when they shecht, like Dr. Dower said before, it's an avela. It's an avela where it's not tar. Nevela. On the other hand, v'hayr Rebbe kachachamim, mamish contradiction. He says one day, the law is like chachamim, that it's not an avela. It's a good shchita. You got to be concerned. It's a good shchita. But says the Gemara, I want to know which one Rebbe said later on in his life, meaning that's the real halacha. This is a story. You have Rebbe Abba Bereder Rebbe Chia. Rebbe Abba, the son of Rebbe Chia. Before we said Rebbe Chia Ubanov. So here's one of the sons that was the tzaddik, that because of him the generation was saved. Rebbe Chia Ber Abba. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's different Rebbe Chia. Rebbe Chia Ber Abba. Reb Zera, also Reb Zera. Have a kaim b'shukat de Chazarah. They were in the marketplace of Caesarea. How do you say it in English? Caesarea. Really? Oh, strange name. Standing outside, where the olam stands when they're not in the mood of being inside the base medrash. So Rebbe Ami comes out. He finds them. Amar Lahu. He gives them a little line. He says, didn't I tell you, when I'm darshaning here in the basement, like the kimu abroi, don't stand outside. Either go home or come inside. Why? Maybe it's something that's going to need pshat, and it's going to be too difficult for him. Come inside, and you can answer for them. Maybe Rashi explains. Maybe I won't say it won't be understandable for me. You come and you'll help them. If you were there, you'd be able to help. Says the Gemara, Reb Zera Reb Zera took the musar, he comes back into the base medrash. Reb Abba left, loyal, he walked away. In other words, he wasn't chutzpahdik. Reb Ami just said, listen, either you're inside or go home. So he chose to go home. Reb Zera chose to come inside. In other words, they were large enough in their gadlus, they were huge. They didn't need to come and hear his shir. But don't stand outside. Help out a little bit. They were asking this exact question that we're dealing with now. When Rebbe said that Allah is like Remeir on the one hand, then he said that Allah is like Chacham, and which one did he say second? Because that would be the real Allah. Chaval, you didn't ask me before, because the Saba, the older one, he went home. Rebbe went home. Maybe he would hear it from Reb Chia Bar Abba. And Reb Chia Bar Abba would have heard it from Reb Yochanan. That says the Gemara, the Reb Chia Bar Abba called Klassen Yoimen Komahadir Talmudik Hamed Reb Yochanan. You hear this? Every 30 days, he would repeat the entire Shas and everything he knew in front of Reb Yochanan. In other words, he knew everything that Reb Yochanan said. My Allah. The bottom line is, what's the halacha? Is it like Remeir that says that when a cheresh v'katan does a shchita, we could assume that it's an avela, it's garbage, it's nothing? Or no, it's a good shchita. We have to be fakert. We have to be machmer and say it's a good shchita. Toshma the shalach Rebbe Elazar legoyla. He asked in Golos, in America, in Bavel, Hi Rebbe ki Rebbe Meir. That Rebbe said that Allah is like Remeir that's an avela. But he also said that Allah is like Rabbana. The reason why he said that Allah is like Remeir is because that's the last one. Shmamino, he passing that's in avela. If a person shechted, so this happens in the shlachtos today. They shecht 100 birds. Halavai 100 birds. 10,000 chickens. How many kisei adams do they do? One. You could do one covering of the blood for 10,000 chickens. How do I know? Because it says in the Mishnah, Shachat me'ah chayis b'mokem echad. If you shechted 100 wild animals like deer, kisei echad lekulam, you do one kisei adam. You don't have to do every single chaya in between. That would be crazy. You'd have to do kisei adam between every chicken. The price of chicken would be, $400 a pound. Me'ah oifes b'mokem echad. You shechted 100 birds in one spot. Kisei echad lekulam, one kisei adam. What if he did chaya va'oif b'mokem echad? First he shechted a venison, then he did a bird. Okay, finally says the Mishnah, if you do shecht venison and a chicken in the same time, one kisei adam is enough. In other words, it's one mitzvah. He holds that it's two separate mitzvahs. If two separate mitzvahs, you can't get away with one kisei adam for two. Chaya, kol mashma chaya. Kol mashma chaya. Bei meruba, bei muetas. All types, a lot of chayas, a few, one kisui for everybody. Oiv, kol mashma oiv. Bei meruba, bei muet. We can from here. We say, Shachad mea chayas b'makom echad, kisui echad lekulam. He shechted 100 animals in one spot, one kisui. Mea oiv b'makom echad, kisui echad lekulam. That's what the Mishnah says. Chaya b'oiv b'makom echad, kisui echad lekulam. If you do one on one chaya, one bird, one kisui adam is enough. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shochet Chaya Chasen Ovach Yachish Chalitzoif. Shenemar Chaya Oy Oif. It says either or. Omer Lo Yarei Omer Kinefesh Kol Basar Dome Benafshei Hu. So Michael Mahadjule, what exactly did they tell him? Hori Garmel Rabbana. Hay Oy Meboyle Lechalek. That you don't have to shecht two. You don't have to shecht a bird and a chaya in order to do kisei dam. It's either or. Then you chaya kisei dam. Says Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Lechalek. So in other words, the Oy is not extra. So Yehuda L'chalig mit Domai Nafka. Domai is singular, so he learns that you do kisei dam, Domai to the blood of one, either or, either the bird or the chay. You don't need both. Rabbanan Domai Tuva Mashma. No, the word Domai can mean plural. The chsiv kinefesh kol basar Domai benafshayu is talking about kol basar, all the basar, and it only calls it Domai, meaning plural. The word Domai is actually plural. When you shecht a bird and you shecht a venison, you make one bracha, ala shchita. Oh, the Ravashi, Maishna mitalmidei the Rav. Why is it different than the halacha we're about to learn from the Talmidim of Rav? Great stuff. The Rabbeinu of Chanal Talmidei Rav have a yaser b'sudasa. They were sitting at a meal. Koim alayu Rav Yeva Saba. So a Talmud Chacham by the name of Rav Yeva, elder, he was the waiter. Amrulei, so they said, Havli Varach, we want a bench. And then, Amrulei, Havlishti, you know what? Instead of giving us the wine to bench, the bench on a kais, no, we want to drink more. Omar Lu Rav Yeva Sabos, he said, no. Hochi Amar Rav. I'm not just a waiter. You think I'm a waiter? I learned by Rav. Kivin the Omar Havli Varach, when people say Rabbi Sam and Villain Benchin, it's a leila mishtei chamra. Then it becomes usher to drink wine. You have to make another bracha. Hachanami, says the Gemara, so too in our case. Kivin the tapale lekisoy, ichayv leila bracha. Since he started doing a kisoy for the deer, let's say, he should be chayiv another bracha on the chicken. He should have to make another bracha on the shchita. Why is one bracha enough? Kivin the tapale lekisui chayiv leile bracha. Once he made a hefsek by saying I gotta cover the blood for the chaya. Now you chayiv in a bracha, new bracha for the shchita on the bird. Says Gemara, I'll tell you a difference. Hasam mishta uveruchi b'hadadu lo yavsher. You can't bench and drink at the same time. So once you decide you're going to bench, that means you're not drinking. So that's why I have to make another bracha. I don't know exactly how it's done, but you could use one hand to shech the bird. Let's say if a guy is holding the neck to you, you go like this. And at the same time, with your other hand, you can do kisei adam. They're not a contradiction to each other, says the Gemara. And that's why one does not require a bracha because you're doing the other. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day, a guten Shabbos.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDY.com.